Okay, so these surroundings, remember, most of them are natural. Okay, so what is the message? The message is, what is it that you are adding to this environment? What is it that you are taking from the environment? Is it sustainable? So you need to look at that and be able to take care of it. So because of the surroundings and because we interact with those surroundings, then we have had environmental challenges. Okay, and these are problems with the planet system. It could be the problems with the air, the water, that have developed as a result of human interference. So we are here with the environment, however, we have interfered with it because we must get the natural resources from the environment for us to be able to survive. But sometimes we overdo it. We get a lot. Now, for agriculture, for example, we are supposed to use fertilizer for us to be able to get yield, but we are overdoing it. Now, the moment we overdo it, then the land becomes unsustainable because now it becomes too acidic, and therefore we are not able to sustain that environment. Okay, so there are several environmental challenges which I've heard about. We have heard about the global warming and the climate change, and this is so obvious because like now the weather patterns have really changed. You realize that you can no longer predict when it will rain. It comes at any time. Those who plant, they are almost now relying on irrigation because during the planting season, there's a drought, and during the harvesting season, there's too much rain, and therefore it is causing us a lot of problems. There is air pollution, okay? So everywhere now, it's smelling bad. It's affecting us. It's all over. And then there is the water pollution. All our rivers are polluted at the moment. All our streams in the villages are polluted. You can no longer just take the water from there, drink the water from there without treating it. Not like a few years ago, okay? And so many of the challenges. We have land degradation due to agriculture, fertilizers, pesticides, and all that. We have a lot of solid waste that sometimes we really do not know how to take care of it. Resource depletion, we are getting the resources from the environment, you're getting the water, we are getting, the plants and all that. So at the moment you're depleting. There is a lot of energy issues. There are issues to do with extinction of endangered species, okay? For example, the white rhino, how many are we remaining with in Kenya? One. And yet, yet Kenya was a home for so many white rhinos, and now we are remaining with one, which is, we don't know for how long it will live. So those are because of effects of pollution. Okay, overpopulation, which we can't do anything about it because the Bible says you procreate, but it is bringing us environmental problems, okay, and so forth, okay? So we need to look at it. Now, when you look at, for example, this is water. I don't know whether you can be able to see well, but there is a ship, okay? However, in the water, moving in the water, but it's pouring oil, okay? So there is oil that's being poured in the water. So what will happen if there is spillage of oil in the water? You see, we are going to lose a lot of life, marine life, okay? And fish has been a livelihood for so many of us. So you realize that if we keep on losing it, okay, so it reduces the sources of food that we have in the country. So we have been having forests like this, very green, and they are very dense. The trees are really very big and beautiful, but we no longer have them, okay? Is Mau still like this? Green on the other side. What about Mount Kenya? Mount Kenya is still like that, huh? The people who have been there recently, anybody? The forest in Mount Kenya. But still people have encroached in it, a little bit. But now when we cut, we end up like this with dry land, desert land, and all that. And that is what is causing actually the climate change. So it's really affecting the climate, and now we're having different weather patterns and all that. There is a lot of drought when we really do not need it. Okay. Then we could have some industries which are polluting. Okay. And remember, most of the industries, they use a lot of chemicals, and then when they're using energy, and turning around, you realize that whatever comes out of that industry, that smoke, it really have a lot of negative implication. It's very toxic, because those are just chemicals which are being released to the air. And that is why we are having a lot of cancers. We are having a lot of some unexplainable diseases. Some of them have already been confirmed, associated with chemicals. Others have not been confirmed. But the issue is that the environment is just very sick. It's contributing a lot to some of those diseases. And you realize that whatever is being discharged from the industry ends up all the way into our water bodies. It ends up into the food chain. And you realize that maybe whatever you are eating, the fish or even any other meat or any other plants, you could be eating what has been accumulated as a result of the releases of those chemicals from the industry. Okay. Now, as an organization, we look at an organization and the environment. Okay. Now, as an organization, we have several things that happen. Now, our main focus is that we are supposed to have a productive output, a beneficial output, which we call a product. Okay. Now, we are going to use a lot of activities, which that is the process that will transform inputs into outputs. Now, what are the inputs? The inputs will depend with what is your end product. Now, if the end product is juice, then the inputs will be the fruits, we have the energy, we have the water, the air, and all that. So then, through your process, through your machinery, you're going to transform them, and then you get the juice, or you get your fertilizer, or so forth. So as you get the beneficial product, which is either the juice or the fertilizer or whatever, or the fruits, the cut fruits and all that, you will also get the byproducts, which are the waste. Okay, we have a lot of emissions, we have a lot of residual energy, that is energy that goes to waste, which has to be taken care of. We also have noise. We have a lot of, you're using water, so you will get effluent, so wastewater. You're going to get solid waste, depending on the nature of your product. And all those are harmful to the environment. So that is why we are bringing in the environmental management system to help you to actually manage these other byproducts that are not beneficial to you. Okay? So the ideal situation for any organization is that as you have your productive process, you are supposed to use less water as you're manufacturing. The wastewater that will come out of your process should be minimal and treated before you discharge to the environment. The solid waste should be very minimal, so you try as much as possible to minimize what solid waste is coming out of you, out of your process. And this sometimes is possible through looking at what kind of raw materials, what are your inputs. Sometimes like those who are dealing with fruits, if you do not have good purchase specifications, you're going to bring in the raw materials which are already rotting, and that is automatically waste. So you generate solid waste before even you generate your juice. So you need to look at your processes to ensure that we have minimal volume of solid waste coming out. And that waste, you have to ensure that your raw materials are in such a way that you do not have any hazardous substances in those materials or in your inputs, so that at the end of the process, you do not have waste that is toxic to the environment or hazardous to the environment. And also, you need to come up with waste that you can recycle, okay? Turn the waste to manure, okay? So that means that your waste should not be mixed with plastics and all that. Then, the atmospheric emissions, on the other hand, should be very minimal. The raw materials that you're using should be renewable or recycled material. And then use less energy or renewable energy, like solar energy and all that, so long as msikizane na KPLC. Naona wanalia ati watu wanakimbilia solar, wanawaacha wawata. So, and then the product should be a product that does not have a lot of packaging. Because remember, the package, you will just remove and throw it away. Okay. However, if it is and some of them come up with sustainable packaging, a package that you can even eat, package that you can reuse and all that. Or a product that has extended life, that is, we are talking about not perishable products and all that. Depends with the kind of product you're coming up with. However, it's very difficult to do this. It is very difficult to earn your profits, and at the same time, if you're using a wet, you're dealing with a wet process, not to have any, not to use any water or not to generate any liquid waste. So, however, there are ways that can make you to almost have that ideal situation. Okay, there are two mechanisms. There is the enforced mechanism and the voluntary mechanism. Okay, now the enforced mechanisms, that is where the law comes in. Okay, and in our country we have the Environmental Management and Coordination Act, the one that is actually spearheaded by the NEMA, National Environment Management Authority. So that is the law for environment in the country, and there's so many other laws for environment depending with the nature of your industry. There are so many. There could be a water law, there's an energy law, all those are environmental laws. But in most cases, if we are going to implement the law only, we are going to wait until we make mistakes, we pollute, and then we undertake corrective measures, which is very expensive. However, there is the voluntary mechanisms. It means that you look for, you proactively look for ways in which you can try to prevent this generation of solid waste or reduce, okay? And that brings us to preventive measures, and that brings us to ISO 14000 family of standards, which is a proactive way of taking care of the environment, okay? And that brings us to ISO. I hear that it disorients me. No, the echo, it was too strong. Okay, so who is ISO? So I'm sure you've heard a lot about ISO. You've had people getting certified to ISO 9000, ISO 14000. Sometimes it's on the paper, sometimes it's in the media. But who is ISO? ISO is an international agency. Okay, it consists of 165 members, and these members consist of the National Standardization Organization in the country. Like now, Kenya Bureau of Standards is a member of ISO. So that is the membership of ISO. We have Uganda Bureau of Standards, we have Tanzania Bureau of Standards as members of ISO. So the name in English is International Organization for Standardization. Just from that name, it means that its work is just to develop standards, okay? And you refer to it as ISO and not ISO because it's not an abbreviation, it's a name. And it's derived from the Greek word isos, meaning equal. So the purpose of them coming up with that name is that they wanted to have the same pronunciation in every country, in every tribe. There will be no translation of that term. And it's equal in all situations, whatever you're talking about. So meaning that it was to bring about standards to equalize trade in the world. So if you are implementing international standards, it means that you can easily sell to international markets, okay, depending with the nature of your product. So it was formed in 1947, immediately after the Second World War, and actually the military is the one that gave birth to this agency because of the lessons that were learned in the military world during that war. The headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland. So its work is just to develop international standard to foster increased trade of products and services, and up to date, it has published over 22,000 standards, okay? But we are here due to ISO 14,000 standards, family of standards. Now, ISO 14,000 family of standards, there are several, okay? They contain a series of standards for taking a systematic approach to environmental management. So it's the standards, they are tools to guide us on how we can manage our environment, our surrounding, from whatever little processes we are doing. It provides guidance for voluntary development and implementation of sound EMS principles, voluntary. Okay, so nobody forces you to go for this standard, it's voluntary, but once you implement it, you realize that there are several benefits that you will get. You will save a lot of resources, and therefore you will end up making profit. So they are applicable to any organization. They are designed with integration in mind, and they have a high level structure. So we'll be able to tell you what's that high level when we get to that slide. So when you're implementing an environmental management system, these are the core standards that you will need in the beginning. There is ISO 14001:2015. That is the environmental management system, requirements with guidance for use. So that's the standard that has the requirements, and that is now the tool that you will use to implement. It has stated what you need to put in place. It gives a step-by-step guide on, you should have this, you should have this, and we are going to have an overview of that standard, okay? And that is the standard that SMEs are getting certified to if they have a sound environmental management system. And then there is one, ISO 14004:2016. Now that one, environmental management system, general guidelines on implementation. Now that is a guide to the implementation of ISO 14001. So it uses the word should, meaning that it has given us a lot of examples that you can take if they apply to your organization or not. But the first one just has the generic requirements that anybody can apply. And then there is ISO 14031. That is environmental management, environmental performance evaluation. Now, 14001 requires you to put up an environmental management system and then collect data and evaluate the performance, okay? But for you to be able to do that, you are supposed to come up with performance indicators, like for example, the amount of solid waste generated, the amount of energy that you are using, the amount of liquid waste, or the water, the fresh water you are using, because you are supposed to reduce also the fresh water that you're using or to manage the spillages and all that. So 14031 will help you now to come up with those performance indicators. So it will give you the guidelines. And then the standard also, as one of the requirements of EMS, is that we need to audit the system ourselves. We need to check ourselves internally. So the ISO 19011:2018 gives us guidelines on how we can check. We can audit, what we call audit, guidelines for auditing management systems. So it will tell you on even what are some of evidence you need to look for to show that you're performing, how to analyze the data and all that, okay? So that is an overview of the standards. Now, however, so the standard, if you're certified, you'll be certified to 14001:2015, an environmental management system, or EMS. So you'll simply say, I have an EMS according to ISO 14001:2015. So however, what is an EMS? Okay, so an EMS, or an environmental management system, is a set of processes and practices that enable an organization to reduce its environmental impacts and increase its operating efficiency. So it's the processes and practices that will help you to reduce your solid waste generation, the amount, or even if you are producing solid waste, is it compostable? Can you make manure out of it? Can you recycle it? Can you sell it to another party that can use it for something else so that it's not going to waste and all that? It will help you to reduce your water usage, okay? It will help you to treat your water that you're generating before discharge. It will help you manage the energy that you're using. It will help you maybe invest in LED lights and all that. Look at solar or look at a machinery that is efficient, it's not using a lot of electricity and all that. So it's an EMS can be applied to any business of any size in any given sector. Okay. Now, it will allow your company to identify opportunities for improving and implementing environmental performance. Okay. So remember, it will help you to come up with the environmental targets, environmental objectives, what are the risks to your business, and then you manage, because all those things are explained in the standard. However, having an EMS is a voluntary activity, but once you get certified, then it becomes mandatory. So you have to implement the requirements of the standard. Okay? But why do we have to implement an EMS? So Wangari Maathai once said that the environment and the economy are really both two sides of the same coin. If we cannot sustain the environment, we cannot sustain ourselves. Is that true? Okay. And I'm almost seeing in my village nowadays, it's very difficult to get firewood. So because we misused it at one point and we never replenished the trees and all that, it's very difficult to get vegetables because the soils are exhausted, they're too acidic, they cannot sustain anymore and all that. Okay. So what are the benefits of an EMS if you implement an environmental management system? What are some of the benefits? To you as an organization, you'll be able to reduce what you can, reuse what you can, and recycle. So you will be able to adopt those approaches to make tangible cost reductions. It will enhance your company image, you know, the clean company and all that. Reduce the impact of your business activities on the environment. And to the customers, it reassures them that they are working with a company which promotes a shared environmental ethics and all that. It's also a proof that you are maintaining a forward-thinking, environmentally aware organization. And some customers are really very happy to deal with organizations that are, you know, they have those environmental, they are taking care of the environment and all that, depending on the nature of your customer and all that. To the staff, it will increase the motivation of the environmentally conscious employees, it actively reduces environmental risks and prevents incidents. Those negative incidents that can arise out of environmental pollution, like people becoming sick due to what they're handling. So they're having chest problems and all that. People having those physical accidents because of a disorganized organization in terms of you have put everything everywhere. So there are those minor accidents and all that, okay? And then it will increase environmental awareness amongst the entire workforce. So these are some of the effects of having an environment. You can see on the left-hand side, we have, you know, there are so many wires all over. They could actually lead to an explosion, they could lead to a fire, and anything negative, okay? But now after an EMS, there will be that organization, and you realize that now things will be flowing, okay? You've arranged your things. You'll be able to know where am I having leakage so that you take care of it, because you can be able to see things are clear. Where am I having a problem? You'll be able to see, okay? So like this is a chemical or a paint organization. So it's very disorganized. There's a lot of leakage, okay? And the leakage could just be occurring out of maybe not arranging the drum. So there's minor accidents and all that. But after the EMS, you realize that you have a clean. And remember that leakage is pollution. If it's going to the drainage and ends up in our waters, it's going to have a problem to our waters and so forth, okay? There are those plastics there, they are actually just rusting there, rotting, And yet, when you have organized well, you can realize that you can actually reuse them and all that. You can reduce, the resources and all that. Solid waste that has been dumped all over, but after the EMS, you realize that at least you have the waste bins and all that. So those are some of the advantages of having an EMS. It just helps you to organize your place and it becomes clean, and you're able to monitor actually what you're generating and to see whether you are actually reducing or increasing. Okay? So all that is possible because of an EMS based on ISO 14001, 2015. Okay, so we look into detail of this standard, ISO 14001, 2015, because it's the one that has requirements for sound implementation of an environmental management system. So what is ISO 14001, 2015? So it's an international standard for requirements of an environmental management system. So it's developed by ISO, as I told you, and it has been adopted by the Kenya Bureau of Standards for application in Kenya. It can be used as basis for third-party certification of environmental management system. Okay, so normally when you go for certification, any certification body will check your work based on the requirements of the standard. So the standard says, like, for example, you need to have an environmental objective on reducing of solid waste generation. So then the auditor will just come to check whether you have lived with that commitment of reducing solid waste generation. As simple as that. Okay. So it's based on what we call the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or the PDCA methodology. Okay, meaning that in whatever you do, you have to plan first. And in planning, first of all, you must know what is your target or what is your output, what is your objective, what do you desire to have. So if I desire to have ABCD, then in planning, I'm looking at what resources will I require in order for me to achieve this ABCD, okay? So what are the resources? Resources in terms of finances, in terms of now the strategies, the procedures, in terms of the people and all that. So you also identify the where you are in terms of the context of your organization. What do you have at the moment? Internal issues, the competency, the capability, the technology. So you're looking at all those things, okay? So there are clauses around planning, which I think, don't know whether we'll be able to see later. Yeah. So there are clauses around planning from the standard, that's clause 4, 5, and 6. So I'll show you what they mean. And then after you have planned, you do, meaning that you now implement your plan. Do, the D. So there we have clause 7 on support, and then we have clause 8 on operation. You now look at the operational controls, you look at the emergency preparedness to prevent issues to do with fire, okay? Because now when we have fire, we have environmental pollution. When you have fire in your premises. So in terms of environment, we are now not looking at the people, we are looking at the pollution. So we need to prevent that fire from ever happening so that we reduce the pollution. Then there is the C, the check, performance evaluation. You also always need to check what you are actually, whether you are meeting your objectives, whether you are using your resources effectively, whether your machines are running, are you generating any pollution, what kind of pollution, what's the amount, so you check at that moment, okay? Now, if you are too negative in terms of the results are too negative, then you take action. And that is where we have the A, the improvement, okay? So you take actions in order to improve, in order to reduce the generation of solid waste, to reduce energy usage and all that. Okay? Any question up to there? So if there's no question, I will request that we take a short break. Dick? Yeah. Okay, so we'll take a short break for 15 minutes. So thank you.
Hata kama umepotea ndio tutaenda na treatment ya mimi huko na bado za family pia. Hawa watu wako na selfish mingi. Ni ministry. Ni ministry ama ni PPMC? Unasijua sasa juzi nilikuwa Lions. Sasa venye nilikuwa Lions. Sasa kuna director wa Lions alikuwa amekaa. Sasa kuna mtu anaitwa Jojo Rido. Sijui kama nilimuona hapo. Nika jamaa mwingine alikonga banguka hapo kitambo. Kwa siku hizi wakana sijui mimi sema hiyo PPMC. Hao ndio select. Sasa unajua director nilikuwa hapo. Director anamuuliza, ananiuliza, "Did you get the 100 million for the work for pay?" Nikamwambia hapana. Na nikamwambia hata si mimi peke yangu kama dancer. Madansa mimi najua wote wanalia hawakuipata. Sasa unajua Jojo Rido ashatengeneza venye walipea madansa pesa nini ya COVID. Akaanza nikaona anaanza kunini kulengea YouTube.
Malika, good morning.
So as I was saying, the standard has 10 clauses. Okay, but now the requirements start from clause 4. Okay, the standard uses the term shall, and the first place you see that shall is in clause 4, where we have the context of the organization. In clause 4, we're simply just saying that we need to know ourselves, the internal issues that we have, the external issues that we have. The internal issues are, for example, our internal environment. We're looking at the knowledge that we have, the competence that we have. We are also looking at the technology that we have, what is the nature of our product, how poisonous is our product that we are handling. So we know ourselves first before we plan, and then we know the external issues that can affect us. So the external issues we are looking at, for example, we are looking at the legal requirements, we are looking at the political environment, we are looking at the social, the pastel. So we have political, environmental, social, technological, economic, and the legal. Once we've done that, we also have what we call interested parties, the people who can be affected by what we do, or they can affect what we do negatively. So we have interested parties, we have our customers, we have our suppliers, we have our neighbors, we have the ministries, the government, county government, the ministry that you are affiliated to, depending on the nature of the product that you have. We have NEMA. So all those, they have interest in our organization, which we have to identify and fulfill. Okay? Some of them simply just want you to fulfill the laws. And once you have identified that, you're good to go, because it means once you fulfill the laws, you will be happy, your business will be happy, and nobody will bother you at all. Okay, so that is the context of the organization. So you need to know those things because before we set up our system. And then in clause 5, we are talking about leadership. Okay. Remember, the leader of that organization is the one who will drive any management system. For us to profit, it means that the leader must know what we are doing. Provision of resources, provision of support to the organization, ensuring that people are well supported, the policies, the objective of that organization. And then also the way we do the roles, we give the roles and responsibilities, that is also in clause 5. And then we come up with the environmental policy in clause 5. In clause 6, we're talking about planning. So planning, we're talking about identification of now those environmental aspects, which are elements of the organization that can affect the environment negatively, okay? Like the solid waste generation, the liquid waste generation, okay? Then we identify the risks. What are the risks to the environment that we have? What is the risk that I will not achieve my objectives? And then in planning as well, you come up with objectives. Clause 7 talks about support. Now in support, we are looking at resources, the money, the equipment, okay? Your machinery now, provision of, maybe if it's the equipment requires maintenance, the appropriate maintenance, meeting the schedule, so that, you know, if it's beyond the schedule, then you realize that either it will use a lot of energy or it will pollute more. So it has to be serviced on time. So that is the support, okay? Plus the procedures now for the environment. In clause 8, talking about operation, and in operation, you're just looking at the controls, the operational control. If you have identified your negative aspect to be, for example, use of energy, then your objective is that you want to reduce the electricity usage. So what are the controls you will put in place? So that is clause 8, operational controls. The controls will be like, for example, I will not use electricity when there is adequate natural light. Okay, I will service my machine, I will use solar. Those are the operational controls to reduce your negative environmental aspect, okay? And then in clause 8 as well, we have emergency preparedness and response. Now, in clause 9 is performance evaluation. Now, your objectives are, for example, to reduce solid waste generation and to reduce energy usage. Now, you're supposed to collect data on that. How much are you using either per batch or per month or per week? Now, according to you, then you analyze. Are you using too much? How much are you paying for that electricity? Is it still going up or is it reducing? So you analyze, and then that is clause 9, performance evaluation. You also evaluate compliance to legal requirements. If you have an aspect that was associated with the legal requirements, and then clause 10, you improve. In the event, but how can I improve? How can I be better? You know, I generated a lot of solid waste and all of it was washed away by rain. No, that is now negative. So how can we improve to ensure that my solid waste is not washed away? And all that, so it doesn't go to the environment and all that. Maybe I'm composting and all that. And then the standard also has an annex, which is guidance on the use of ISO 14001, which is very detailed. So in summary, what are the 9 stages of establishing an environmental management system? So the first stage is that you'll identify your environmental risks and identify your significant environmental aspects. I say that an environmental aspect is an element of an organization's activities, products, or services that can interact with the environment and cause a change, depending on the activities you're doing, okay? You're doing production, therefore what can interact with the environment? You're using energy. So there, in energy usage, there is emissions, and then there is depletion of resources, okay? That's an example. You're doing farming, agriculture. What can interact with an environment and cause a change? For example, fertilizer. You're using fertilizer, you're using pesticides. All those will cause a change. And the change is normally negative. Okay? So you need to identify it and now try to put in place mechanisms on how to control that change to the environment. So once you have identified significant environmental aspects, you will identify what you call the laws, the environmental laws, identify legislation, and evaluate compliance. The law says this, but where am I? if you are, for example, having a borehole, the Water Act says you should not abstract more than this amount per week. However, how much are you abstracting? So you just compare yourself. Therefore, what are you supposed to do? Can you do water harvesting, if possible, rainwater harvesting, so that not to go against the law of water abstraction? And then you will develop an environmental policy to take care of those significant environmental aspects. A policy is just your commitments, your intentions towards the environment. Okay? I'm sure you have heard about Joshua, the Bible, Joshua chapter 24, verse, I can't remember, is it 15? Where Joshua says, mimi na nyumba yangu tutamtumikia Bwana. Me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. Now, in the environmental policies, now you're committing your organization. Me and my organization, we will manage the environment according to the objectives, according to what negative issues we have seen. So by managing it's a commitment, so it's a statement you write, committing the organization that you will take care of the environment to reduce pollution, okay, to reduce natural resource wastage, okay, or depletion. And then for you to be able to achieve that policy, you need to have the objectives. So you set and track your objectives. Simple objectives, like I want to reduce energy usage. Even if your energy is in terms of money, you're paying 10,000 per month. So you just set an objective that I want to be paying 8,000 per month. And then you track as simple as that. Okay? And then the operational control. Now the procedures to now reduce that energy. Okay? And then you come up with what you call emergency preparedness and response. Follow and measure. That means that you performance, you collect your data, and then you audit your system, and then there is a management review. Okay. Now, in the identification of environmental aspects, we said an environmental aspect could be element of your activity, product, or service that can interact with the environment and cause a change. Like, for example, you're using energy, there is water, there's production. Okay, so what you're going to do is identify and check whether it is significant. If, for example, you have seen that negative aspect is the generation of solid waste, how much is it? Is it significant? If you're just generating 10, for example, let's say 50 kilograms of solid waste per week, and that solid waste is just the peels, it might not be so significant because the peels, maybe of the potatoes or the fruits, and you're already composting, then that's not significant. It's actually beneficial, okay? However, maybe you want to take care of it to continue composting, so that, so you'll check, is it significant? Is it too much? Is it polluting too much? Is there a law associated with it? If there is a law associated with it, then an environmental law associated with it, then it is significant. You need to take care of it. You need to put in place procedures to ensure that you take care of it. So this is how we identify the significant environmental aspect. This is just an example of a register that we use. So you'll identify all your negative issues to the environment. For example, that's what we call environmental aspect. For example, the waste storage outdoors, like the solid waste. Are you using chemicals? Okay. Are you generating a lot of solid waste? Are you using energy? And then you tick as appropriate. Okay. What is the potential environmental impacts associated with those environmental aspects? Is it resource depletion? Is it waste management? Is it emissions? Is it land contamination or soil contamination? Is it generation of soil? Or is it killing plants and animals? That's biodiversity, the flora and fauna. Is there a relevant legislation associated with it? Is it a concern to the customers? Are the customers complaining? Anytime customer anakuja kwako anasema, nini huwa what normally smells here? Okay, is it a concern, or the customers are complaining about too much noise? Too much noise coming out of the generator, it means that there's something wrong. Okay, so if it's a concern, So this is a survey you will do, and then now you will be able to identify whether it is significant or not. So once it's significant, and then you need to identify applicable legal requirements and then keep a legal register. Okay? So an example of the legal requirement that you're going to identify is, for example, the Environmental Management and Coordination Act. Okay, it talks about solid waste management. It talks about air pollution. There is an issue on taking care of wastewater. Okay, and then ensure that you understand what are the requirements for your organization in terms from that environmental management. Not the whole act is applicable to you. They're just specific requirements. So we look at them and see, are we complying with them or not? If not, what are some of the mechanisms we can put in place to comply with that legal requirements? Okay, like for example, if you dispose waste somewhere, and you use a waste handler, somebody comes to collect your waste and takes it somewhere. Now, if you're implementing an environmental management system, that somebody who collects your waste must be licensed. So that is one of the legal requirements, must be licensed by NEMA. Okay. So these are just examples of legal requirements. There is the MCA, water quality regulations. There is the waste management regulations. There is the environmental regulations for environmental impact assessment and environmental audit. I'm sure you have heard about that. We do environmental impact assessment for any new project that's coming up. We do a study to ensure that we know what are the negative impacts that will be brought about by that project that you want to put up. Like if you want to put up a factory, you want to put up a high-rise apartment, you need to do that study. So that, what is the reason? So that you know if it will bring negative impacts, to come up with a plan on how we will manage those impacts. And then environmental audit, that is EA, is a requirement that every company must do an audit and submit to NEMA on a yearly basis. Okay? Now, there are controlled substances, the legal requirements for that. Okay? Requirements for designated laboratories for testing. So if you are claiming that you have tested your water, you've tested your effluent, these are the results, people will want to know which laboratory did you use, because the designated laboratories are put in the law. Some of them are, for example, the government chemists. We have the universities laboratories. Most of them, actually nearly all the universities, those are designated laboratories for testing. So you can put you take your water there, the laboratory is also at case, and then you say, these are my findings, and I'm actually within the law and all that. Okay? Then we say that you will do an environmental policy, okay, which gives intentions and direction of an organization related to environmental performance. So it gives us the commitments of an organization towards the environment. Okay, so I've already discussed a lot about the policy, and this is an example, as in it should be just a one-page statement that's understandable and available to the public. It will help you to describe your company activities and then the commitment to fulfill legal compliance. Okay, so in the policy, you're just saying your company is committed to protecting the environment, you're committed to meeting legal requirements, and also preventing pollution. As simple as that. Then that is your commitment. Now, if you have that as your commitment, then it means that you will do all that appertains for you to meet that commitment. You will try as much as possible to do the practices that will help you to prevent pollution. Practices that will help you to meet the legal requirements and all that. Okay? So as an example of an environmental policy, the environmental goals of the XYZ farms, which deals with the growing and processing of flowers, are to meet or exceed applicable environmental laws and regulations and to protect our environment through sound management practices and decisions. So the XYZ farms will prevent pollution by striving to minimize waste generation and resource consumption. the XYZ firms will develop and monitor annual environmental objectives and targets to assist in meeting this commitment and ensure continual improvement. So you'll come up with something like this, which just shows your commitment, okay, depending on the nature of your organization. So your commitment is to prevent pollution, to minimize waste generation, resource consumption, and to meet the legal requirements where applicable. So you have a statement like this. It can even be shorter than this. It can even be just be that one line, the second paragraph, only that one. And then you put in place mechanisms to ensure now you meet that commitment. Okay. Now, once you have the policy, you will have the objectives and targets to monitor, control, or reduce your impact on the environment. Okay. So you're going to come up with simple, realistic objectives. For example, I will reduce my energy bill by 5%. Energy bill, it means that there's so much that you put in place, the practices, switch on the lights when they're not used, do what and all that, and then so that you reduce your energy usage. Okay? And then you have to keep track of them. So these are examples. Okay, reduce by 5% the electricity bill. What are the things you will do in order for you to reduce that electricity bill? Switch off the light when you're not in use, or the switch off light campaign, change lamp bulb to LED, change to solar, and all that. So, and even train your people on how, so it depends. Okay? So dry 20% of the input with a solar dryer. So meaning that you have been using electricity to dry your produce, but now you want to go towards a solar. So you have to plan for it because it requires money. So you need to plan. It's not that today you just wake up and say, I want to do solar tomorrow. No, it's something you have to plan. And then now you approach it gradually. And then that is why, because it requires finances. Okay? Capacity building on solar drying for the employees, meaning that now you want to introduce solar. It means that you have to train your people. Yeah? Now, as you have the objectives, there is the operational controls. Now, you need to develop operational controls to assist in controlling and managing the activities, processes, products, and services. Okay? Now, if, for example, you identified the negative effect or aspect as environmental aspects like waste generation, use of energy, and use of chemicals, then you have to come up with the procedures, the controls, operational controls. Okay? You also identified fire as one of the issues. So what are you going to come up with? Operational controls include pollution control equipment, like for example, even the fire alarm is an operational control. Operating procedure is an operational control. Contract requirements with your suppliers. So you tell them exactly what they bring so that they do not bring waste to your organization. Okay, signages, checklists, and all that. Okay. So what is the purpose of operational controls? They help us to conserve energy and resources. So those operational control procedures must consider operations carried out by external providers or suppliers, what we call suppliers or the contractors. So they have to take care of them. Then we have emergency preparedness and response. So you come up with the plans for emergency preparedness. Now, depending on the product that you have, the kind of some environmental accidents that we can have include fire, include oil spillage, chemical spillage, an explosion if we have a boiler. They could also include any leakage that is of great magnitude, that it can cause issues, flooding, it can actually cause people drowning and all that. Those are what you call environmental emergencies. So you, depending on your analysis, it could be fire, it could be any of those. You need to come up with what we call an emergency plan. Now, the purpose of an emergency plan is There are two. One is to prepare for an emergency and respond to it. And two, to prevent an emergency from ever happening. Because sometimes fire can occur because due to our carelessness. Maybe, you know, the way you store things, you're mixing petrol and something else, then it could lead to fire and all that. So then you're supposed to have that plan to prevent. And if it ever happens, then we are going to respond to it immediately to prevent further damage. Okay? So for fire, you need to have an evacuation plan to exit and then a good response plan. Train your people on them and all that. So depending on the nature of the emergency. For leakage, you need to check whether you have any monitoring in place to detect the leakage and if there are people who are responsible for reacting to that detected leak, okay? And then for chemical spills, do you have any protective equipment, okay? Is it fitted correctly and how is it maintained? So you prepare for an emergency and ensure that it never occurs to you, it never materializes. So because nowadays all management system standards are based on risk-based thinking, risk-based approach. Now, whatever you're planning, you have to ensure that you also plan for its failure. Is it okay for Christians to plan for failure? But here in these standards, we have to plan for it. Because like, for example, you left home today morning, coming to this place, okay? And some of you came from far, and that's all. So yesterday you planned for arriving here on time. However, you are also supposed to plan. Christians are not allowed to say that. So that's all, because we live by faith. But then here you are, sir, I will not arrive to that hotel by 8. Are we together? Then you put in place reasons. What are the reasons that will make me not to arrive? What are some of the reasons? One, traffic jam, which is very common and almost normal in Nairobi. What else? Accidents. What else? Puncture, exactly. So then once you put those in place, now that's the risk assessment, okay? Now, if, for example, then you analyze, have they ever occurred? Do they occur frequently? Like puncture, does it occur frequently? If it occurs frequently, the mitigation, what is the mitigation? Yes? What will prevent the puncture from occurring? You have your tires checked before you leave, okay? Then you have already also a spare wheel and all that, okay? What about the traffic? You leave very early because you know you're going to Wayaki Way. There is a lot of traffic, road construction. You normally take 1 hour from your place to town. Then no, 1 hour will not be enough. So you have to estimate at least 3 hours or 4 hours. So that is now what we do with the standards. So we plan for failure. However, we ensure that that failure never materializes. So that by removing all the causes of that failure. So we monitor the causes of that failure. That is now risk management, okay? So this one has decided to fail for real by not moving, okay? Now, after you have all those, you need to be checking, follow and measure. So following and measurement for results. So you monitor and collect data to verify that you are on track. You are complying with legal requirements, you're complying with your targets. So you need to come up with data collection sheets, compare data from different periods, assess your performance. Are you improving or not? Because you said you will reduce your energy usage by 5%. But what is the performance over 3 months? Okay? If you have any good results, communicate your good results to keep interest in the EMS and then evaluate your results with the legal requirements. So motivate people. Okay? And then if there are any negative issues, you undertake what we call corrective and preventive actions. Okay, so it depends with the data that you are collecting. So are the important data taken into account? Do you monitor all the environmental data? So you need to look at all the environmental data like amount of energy used, amount of solid waste generated, what is the composition of wastewater. Okay, so you analyze it and check whether your system is functioning. Okay, if there are any failures or non-conformities, you need to take what we call corrective action. So meaning that you look for the root cause, what is making us to have a lot of solid waste generation? Is it breakdown of the machinery? Is it lack of awareness of the employee? So you need to sensitize them a little bit. So you do that, you take corrective action. Okay, so inform your staff about process changes, for example, the use of gloves and all that if you want to change anything. And then you are supposed to carry out an internal audit of your system and keep track of it. So internal audit normally is done based on that standard that I told you, ISO 19011. So it is a systematic process for checking your system. So you set a schedule. You come up with a schedule where you'll block maybe within 6 months, a day or two, where you just now go through your objectives, your policy, you check around, you inspect your machinery and everything to see whether you've made some improvement benefits or not. Yeah. And then once you've checked, you have the results of internal audit, then you do what we call management review, which is just where you just sit in a room like this, in your office, wherever, under a tree, and then just go through the entire process. If you are many in the organization, then the top management need to discuss. So the agenda is normally provided in the standard. So you'll discuss the significant environmental aspects and legal requirements of the company, whether you're conforming or not. You discuss about the environmental performance, how much energy you have used over a period of time, how much solid waste you have generated. You will discuss those issues, whether you have achieved the objectives. If not, what are some of the corrective actions and preventive actions you need to undertake? So it's a meeting that will help you to discuss whether you are progressing, whether your system is suitable, it's okay or not. And that discussion leads to what we call continuous improvement. Because where there are mistakes, you actually make decisions to improve. Okay? So that is an overview of EMS. Any question? Any question? So if there's no question, I hand over to Duke. Hand over to Duke.
Did you follow? Or was it too much? When the students are silent, you don't know whether it is too much.
There is a question there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.